Hello. How is everybody? Can you hear me? Let me get my comments up. Hi there, everyone. Let me just find myself on Facebook. Yes, there we are. I'm there. Is my sound working before we carry on? Yes, you can hear me. Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Janet. That's amazing. I'm always a little bit wary now. Hi, thanks, Mum. Hi, Patricia. Hi, Sue. Hi, Suzanne, Beverly, Josephine. Hi, Deirdre on Facebook. How is everyone today? Let's do that. And I might be able to see your comments come up on there. Hi, Margaret. Hi, Anne. It's a lovely afternoon. Oh, you've had snow, have you? Oh, hi, Helen. You've had snow too, haven't you, today? We haven't. It was just really cold this morning. I know Helen's had snow, and if Helen's had snow, it's a good day. That's my sister. She loves her snow. She lives down in Devon. She doesn't always see it, but so I know she would have been happy this morning. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Bonnie. Hi, is that Lisa or is that Dawn watching? Okie dokie. It looks like Jean's got snow as well. Hi, Sarah Jane. Did you ever see any snow, Mum, where you are? Oh, hi, Lisa. Did you see any snow, Lisa, today? Lorraine, snow and still trying now. Got Lorraine has snow. There's lots of snow all over the place. It's just cold. Yeah, it's just cold here as well, Janet, for sure. Hi, Antonia. You're sunny. Suzanne's had 3 days of snow. Oh, wow. Well, it's really cold. Yeah, it's really cold here as well this morning. I took Hazel out this morning. Hats and scarves and all sorts this morning, it was for sure. Even Hazel was shivering in the car. I had to put the heater on for her, poor little thing. Okay, we've got a good few of us here now, so thanks for joining me today. I am using, let me just find the bits and pieces. I am making a Christmas card today, and I thought I'd use 2 of my favourite sets from this year. they go really lovely together. We've got the Christmas sleigh and the stencils and the Cosy Christmas home. And I know they've been used before, but I shall be stenciling them in slightly different colours today. I'll be stenciling them both in the same colours because the card is going to sort of coordinate, but it will be different colours to how I've used them previously on other lives that I've done for you. So I also promised that I was going to do a pop-up card. Now this is a really simple card. I wanted to make this sort of card accessible for you, and I've made a mock-up for it just in white, and to be fair, it actually looks really pretty in white as well, to be honest. So it's a real project. If you're ready just to sit down and make a real project, a real special card for somebody, it's all contained within a 6x6 card blank. You can see that it closes up there and it will fit within a 6x6 envelope. Now that will depend on how elaborate you go on the inside, because obviously it's going to have a little bit of depth. It's not going to fold entirely flat, but yeah, it should be contained within a normal sized envelope that you should be able to get hold of. So you can see here that I've die cut. I've only die cut and embossed these at this stage, and this is why I'll go on and stencil in a second. The Cozy Home, let me just get the stencils for that so you can see the image better. I need another set of hands. There we are. Let's bring that one in. Okay, there we are. So I've die cut and embossed 2 sets of the Cozy Home houses there. I've attached them together. You don't have to do this, and you can just use one of the houses, or depending on the size of the card, actually. If you're doing an 8x8 card, you've got an extra bit of space, so you may be able to put 3 groups of these along. Once you get to grips with how it's put together, again, as I always say, it's going to be something that you can adapt as much or as little as you like. And then I've also added in the little sleigh at the front here in a little sort of bespoke easel type card. So I've put my sentiment on, and that's acting as the stopper. And if I turn that on the side for you, you can see that this will close down flat, which then will allow the card to fold down flat. The houses are on a little mechanism just at the back. They're really, really simple. It's just a strip of card, and I'll show you how that's folded to allow that to come down. So it may be worth, if you do give it a go, just mocking it up on a little bit of scrap paper first, just to make sure that you sort of get to grips with it, as it were, and then you'll be well away, and I'm sure you'll all make some fabulous creations from this. So it's a real showstopper card. It's a real dimensional card. It's something that I've made up as I've gone along. It's one of those tricky things. I've got an idea in my head and I thought, can I make that happen? And I had a little play, and yeah, I'm quite pleased with the way that's come out. Now, obviously, when I go to stencil this, and I'll sort of jazz it up a little bit, and we'll put some glitter card in and we'll make it look lovely. So how do I go about doing this first? I think what I'll do, if I leave that just to the side there, these are the colours I'm using. So you can see that they're quite different from usually the blues and pinks that I use to make the really cute houses. But so it'd be like traditional sort of Christmassy colours. With these 2 sets, then obviously I need to put a sentiment on. I've chosen this, but the other one that would work really well are bear with me a second, are these strip words as well. There is a festive version of these. I don't have them, but these would work equally as well, because it's just the single strip, which I found just works really nicely just to, along the bottom of the card there. So the single line, you could, if you wanted to, use one of your sentiment dies. Actually, we've got some sentiments that are actually probably about the size of the sleigh there. So instead of die cutting and stenciling the sleigh, you could actually die cut a nice big sentiment, attach the little easel mechanism, and have that stand up, and perhaps put there just a strip of decorative card or something. So that would work really well as well, actually, if you wanted to do something a little bit different. But say I'm using the Festive Tatty words. You can use these, or you could use Lisa's stickers and mount them onto a strip of card also. So but I'm sure you're all imaginative enough to sort of substitute in what it is that you have from your stash. So as I say, this works in a normal 6x6 card blank. Well, I'm using a 6x6 card blank because that's my favourite, and I haven't used it in a little while. But you could use any type of square card. You could use a rectangle card, like a 5x7 card, or even an A6 if you wanted to go slightly smaller. But what I would say is that the elements that you put onto the front of the pop-up thing here. Now you could swap if you don't have the houses. You could use the sleighs on the back, in which case they are not as tall. So when you close this down, obviously nothing is popping out the edge here. So you do need to bear that in mind with the height of the embellishments. Now, if you were using like the sleigh on the back here, that means that you've got that little bit of extra give. So you could actually use a slightly less deep card, if you see what I mean. So that would work. The other thing that would work really well, I think, with this would be the, where did I put them? Why do I get so many ideas? There we are. There we are. You could actually use the winter forest. And although we don't have a die to die cut the trees, they are simple to cut out. You could actually mount these on the back where the houses are also, and you could emboss a piece to put on the back there. So you've got a double layer of the trees, and then with the sleigh in the front or the robin. There's so many different ideas, so many different ways. So I might actually give that one a go myself also. And the other thing that I thought when I was making this up, that you could actually put on the back here, you could put silhouettes of the houses, just so you've got an extra layer of the house, the roofs of the houses as well, just to add a little bit more depth. So awful lot of ideas, lots of different ways you could go with this. So what we need to do is you take your card blank, and we're working on inside of the card. So you can see that the way this stands here, and obviously I haven't decorated and I won't do on this, but you'd put a simple sentiment, lovely papers. Any of Lisa's papers would look great on the front here. But yeah, we are working on the inside of the card. We need 3 strips of card. So we have, I do have a little, let me see if I can get this working, because I think this was quite helpful the other day. There we are. We have, I've only put 2 strips on here because the way my brain works, the sleigh was an addition afterwards, so I can tell you the dimensions in a moment. So we need 2 strips of card to mount the houses on at the back. We need a strip that is that's 5 inches, is it? Sorry, I didn't write the whole measurements on myself. Yeah, 5 inches by 1 inch, and you score that at 1 inch, 2.5 inches, and 3 inches. Now we're not going to glue this together, and I'll tell you for why in a moment. It's all about giving the card enough movement to open and close and allow our pop-up elements to display themselves freely as well. So we have that piece, and we also have a second piece which is 1 inch by 4 inches, and this is scored at 1 inch, 2 inch, and 3 inch. So this will give us in effect the, let's just move along a little bit. This will in effect give us a square, and again this won't be attached the same way as we were making the pillars either. So I'll show you that in a second. So we'll have those there. Let me just take that away so I've got my space to work in. Now, before I attach these on, what I want to do is add just a little bit of decoration on the inside. Now, I'm conscious that because I'm adding 3D elements into the card, that I don't want to make this too bulky, but just by adding some glitter card, top and bottom, to create a background, I think that's going to be more than enough. And I'm using 2 different colours. I'm using a white glitter card on the bottom, so that's the snow in effect. And I've cut my layer to be smaller than the card blank, and it gives us a little strip there along the fold of the card that won't be impeded. It won't impede the closure of the card. So again, if you're using a 6x6 card blank, these layers could easily be 5.5 inches square, or if you wanted to go to that little bit bigger and use 5 3/4 inches. So we can lay those down. I'm using, say, 2 different colours. You could easily use a blue in the background or a black if you want the night sky. Again, it's completely up to you. Or you can use Lisa's decorative papers, which again, I think would be a lovely backdrop. But we have the snow and we have the starry sky in the background there. I mean, that in itself looks lovely. It's even just that light catching there. So, I have 2 extra pieces, which there we are, that I hadn't written on. Now, the way that these work, we are going to attach the top and the bottom of the card like so. And what you want to do, we aren't going to attach these, we're going to leave this free here. So that is just going to give the fold of the card just that little bit of flexibility. So when we attach those, not right into the fold, let me just hold this up, this is really tricky. We're going to attach this just above the fold, and then when we attached this side down onto the bottom part of the card, and it'll be just under the, again, it just allows that card that little bit of flexibility. Now I know where I'm placing my blocks because I've already measured them out, but what you would need to consider, these are the houses that I'm adding in, is you need to just place and just hold one of those hinges at the back of your embellishments, because you might not use the houses. Now with this second one as well, obviously this is coming out a little bit longer, so you want to have the square, not the long piece, you want to have the square on the back of the embellishment there. And what you just need to do is just hold these in place and just check that your embellishments are sitting within the confines of your card, basically. And then you want the hinge to sit in the centre-ish of your embellishments. So if I leave those there, and we can think about now attaching the hinges, so we can marry these up like so. So I'm using the larger hinge, which means that this embellishment is going to sit more forward. If you can see from here, we have this house is sitting further forward. It just adds a bit of dimension, that's all. We want to put this square of this hinge onto the back of the card. So I'm going to add my glue. And I'm just going to attach that in line with the embellishment and sitting just above the hinge of the card there, or the card centre. We'll just let that glue just take a little second, because obviously that's going onto the glitter card as well, so it takes a little bit longer. Actually, while I'm waiting for that, I will put the second one on. Now this second hinge is square all the way around, so all we need to do is just use the end square, and we put the glue onto that, and we just place that in the same way in the back as well, so that can actually be drying properly while that goes onto the cardstock. You could actually use red liner tape as well, that would work really well. Now what we want to do, we want to pull the back of the card so it sits at 90 degrees. Okay, let me see if I can do it like that. So we want to sit it at as 90 degrees or as close to as possible. So what we need to do, we need to add our glue to this other end. and we want to fold this back so it sits into the fold of the card also, but just a little bit away, obviously, so we've got a little bit of chance to close the card, and just gives that little bit of flexibility. And all I'm doing is just resting that on there, and you can see that when the card is sitting upright, like at 90-degree angle like that, this is also sitting as close to 90 degrees as possible, because what we then want to do is attach our embellishment onto the front there, which allows our embellishment to stand up. Now, hopefully you can see that okay. It's really tricky with an overhead camera. So I'm just allowing that just to dry off a little bit. So we should do the same. I'm just going to move those in so that holds that up a little bit. We're going to do the same on this part. Now, this card will never open really further than 90 degrees. You have a little bit of wiggle room, but not a huge amount. So what you don't want to do is, once you've glued these, you don't want to then allow the card to open flat out again. Okay. So it's quite handy if you do sit the card like this, and you can see, sorry, I won't bring my head into the camera. You can just see that this little hinge is sitting at 90 degrees. It's not as fiddly as it looks, to be fair. Once you've done it once, you'll see where you're going with it. Then what you can do, once you've actually stuck those in position, the best way to allow that to dry is to close the card, and you will see that both of those hinges fold down onto themselves without buckling, which is exactly the way that you want them to work. So while it's down in this closed position, you can just burnish those down and make sure that that glue or the adhesive that you're using really takes. So you can see. Now, I would suggest actually thinking about it, doing this first before you do your stenciling, because that will just give you that time. It will give these hinges the time to dry off. Okay, so now I've done that, I shall leave that to dry, and we can come back to that in a second, and I shall get on with the stenciling. Okay, so I've already stenciled the images that I'm going to use, and die cut them and emboss them. But I will stencil them for you as well, because I know you like to see the different colour combinations, and I'll whiz through this for you. I didn't get any card out. Okay, I'm just going to cut this in half, or as close to. Now, both the houses and the sleigh will be stenciled in the same colours, just to make them all blend in. To be honest, I mean, that's my choice. If you are doing this, and you'll have your colour combinations as well. So the colours I'm using today are quite different, but I'm hoping you'd agree that they would give a festive theme. So let's do that. Hopefully you can see the colours there. I do have a little thing there to show you the colours that I'm using. So the houses are a set of stencils, 9 stencils. They come together really nicely, and I'll show you sort of the different combinations. I think they're really, really cute. I'm going to start off with the Dolphin Grey, and I'm just doing that on the main body of the houses that we have here, and you'll see how it all comes together. I'm doing this really lightly, and I'm concentrating a little bit more ink both at the bottom of these areas and at the top, and you'll see why as the stencil and the image develops. Obviously the base, or the first stencil that we use in any of Lisa's sets, is the foundation to what we stencil on top of, so we don't want to go too bold. So a really light covering of the Dolphin Grey. We do have the roof here, so I'm going to come in with a Loganberry. You could use a really nice red, a nice brick red. We've got a grapefruit red and what's the other one? Strawberry Sundae as well, if you really wanted a true red, Christmas red. But I really like this Loganberry. So that's going to be the roof. Okay, so I'll just make sure I've got that detail on there. So that's all that we need for our first layer. So stencil number 2, we have the center of the larger house, and for that I'm using Straw Hat. So I'm going really pale again. Sort of the colours I've chosen, sort of, I don't know, probably based on houses that I've seen. It's traditional sort of light brick walls and a red roof, basically. That's sort of where my thinking was in that. And just picking out the colours that are appropriate in what's in Lisa's collection. So we have a little detail here in the roof, and I like to do that. I really like to pick that out. You can have some fun, but I'm going to go really dark with the Loganberry. Just like that. Okay. Now, I have used these stencils in the past, and I've actually done the houses individually. So it depends on the card that you're using. If you just want the larger house, then you don't need to worry about the second one either. But even if you are stenciling, it doesn't mean that they necessarily have to be the same as you go along. Okay. So we can see from this stencil that I've used Loganberry. Again, this is picking out sort of details of the chimney and window sills. So it's really nice to come in with like a nice, this is where the brick red would come in. But say I'm using the Loganberry. I've got the chimney here, so I'll go a little bit darker on there. Now you would want to go relatively dark on this, I would say. So even if you wanted to change it up and use a brown, like the tree bark would work really nicely on this as well. So we just come in and we just get those details in there. Okay, so now we have stencil number 4. I'm going to come in with the tree bark. It works really nicely with the Loganberry. I think pink and brown is a super combination. Actually, pink goes with a lot of colours, doesn't it? It looks amazing with grey. I love it with grey. But if you get the right shade, it looks amazing with brown as well, doesn't it? It looks really cosy, really warm. So we shall stencil those in, go really as dark as you can. And once I take this away, you'll see why in a minute. You'll have that real pop. You've got the really lovely roofs there. So stencil number 5 is where we start introducing colour into the windows. Now this has confused people in the past, but looking at it, what you want to do, the way that I tackle this is to go really light into the windows. So I'm using Straw Hat. Now in the past I would perhaps use almond frosting or just a yellow in a really pale colour, because you're going to come in with some details afterwards, and you can see the way that I've used this here, that works really well. So I'm going to come in with the Straw Hat here. Now this also, you could just come in. Sorry about that. Right, that's, I don't know what's going on there. Can't even edit her out today. I don't know. So what I'm going to do is just come in really lightly with the tree bark, because this is just going to give the outline of the window frame. I don't want to go all the way in and make this too dark, because obviously we won't be able to put the light of the windows in afterwards. But if we just come in really lightly and just brush, so we've got like a shadow of that brown that will act as the window frames, that will work. So we just need to take a little bit of time, and if actually, it might actually be a good idea to use a smaller brush as well. but we should just do that. Apologies for Hazel. Actually, apologies for the husband as well. He knows what I'm doing at 2 o'clock today. He's usually under instruction to stay away because he does make Hazel bark, as you can tell. There we are. So we've done that. I don't need to go any more with the brown in that. We have a detail just under the roof here, so I will use the brown on this one also. I have used it, I think, the Loganberry previously. So I do the brown in there like that. Now the little clock face here, you want to perhaps just do something with a bit of a contrast. I will perhaps come in, or perhaps just leave it as it is actually. And just before I move on, I'm just going to tone or just lighten up this clock face here by just adding some of the opaque white. So that's probably the trickiest stencil you need to do. That's stencil number 5. So stencil number 6 now, we add the festive garlands, which really sort of brings it to life because you're introducing a whole new colour. So woodland moss, and come in as dark as you can on this one. You could spend the time and do some shading on this as well, but this woodland moss really does sort of pack a punch when you put this on, and it looks so lovely with any colour scheme that you use actually. So make that really dark going in. There we are. That immediately makes it start looking Christmas, doesn't it? So we have stencil number 7, and here we're bringing in some details into the top of the windows. So we do perhaps want to use a little bit of the bit of the tree bark again. So I will come in dark on not tree barks. Yeah, these tree barks. Sorry. I will come in with the dark in this because I think the real accents, if you can go dark just in small areas, it really brings the rest of the colours to life. So don't be frightened of going dark, even if you're using like a pale colour scheme. It can really sort of be the make or break of it sometimes, to be fair. So I'll go really dark on this larger house. Now what you will need to do is just be a little bit more careful on the base, well, the main section of this house. So I will carry on using the brown. I shall go dark at the bottom like this. But then what I'll do, I shall add just a bit of shading of the brown just coming in. So we're creating and we're highlighting the edges of the house, and just a suggestion of that colour there. And when I pull that away, you'll see exactly what I mean. And this comes through practice mainly. So you can still see, we can still see the details, but it's sort of been highlighted just by little the edge going a little bit darker there. So stencil number 8. Now this is where we start introducing a little bit of snow as well. So the roof obviously is going to need a colour, and I am going to use the brown. I'm not going to add any more colour at this stage to my brush. I'm just going to use what's on there and then decide if I need a little bit more. Now I might add a little bit of shadow, and to do that, I'm to pick up a tiny bit of the tree bark, put it in the centre of the roof, and just brush that just past the gables, as it were, because that will add a little bit of shadow, and that just again just adds a little bit of dimension to the house. It sort of adds to the effect of this being 3D. And then once you emboss this with a folder, that sort of really does come to life. Now you'll see the rest of the details here are actually parts of the snowdrift. So what you want to do is come in with the opaque white, and this has got a really, really good coverage. Now, obviously, some of it is going to be going onto white card. That isn't too much of an issue, to be fair. It'll be a suggestion. And what you can do afterwards, actually, is go along, if you've got like the twinkle pens, it'd be really nice just to highlight those areas that the white isn't immediately obvious on. but we have areas where we've stenciled onto the top of the windows and the window ledges as well. So you will see the white sitting on that. And I shall go and do these bits as well. Now it's going to be really subtle, but once you take the stencil away, it will be there. Now we also have the snowdrift at the bottom. Now I don't want to stencil that in white, but what I will do, I shall come in with my Dolphin grey, the same as I used on the main house. I'm not going to pick up any more ink, but I'm just going to brush what is there, and you may need a little bit more ink, just around the edges of the snowdrift. The majority of the snowdrift will be left white, but if you just dust around the edges and it almost creates a shadow, that will then make the main body of these snowdrifts look whiter. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, but it does work. So you can see how that works like that. It's all about creating the shadows. So come in with stencil 9, which is the last stencil. And here, this is really going to pack a punch because I'm going to come in with my Juicy Pineapple stencil brush. And this is where we're going to add the glow to all the windows. And you do have the decoration on the garlands. So if you really wanted to go to town, you could do these areas on the garlands in different colours. But if you want to use just one colour, then I suggest a yellow, a nice warm yellow, because this will be the glow coming from inside of the house. And this is why you didn't want to use too much of the brown when we were disturbed by Hazel back on this stencil. Let me see, stencil number 5. Okay, the temptation is that you would go yellow on this stencil, but it doesn't always work out that well. So hold off until stencil 9 to create that really nice glow. And we have a bit of a window going on up there. We have the clock, so we want to really make that stand out. So I'm just going to come in with a Dolphin grey on that one to make that stand out, like so. And there we have our houses. And you can see now that the shadow of the brown back on stencil 5 just gives you that window frame edge around the outside, but obviously the glow from the windows is still shining through. So as I said, I've already stenciled these 2 lots. So we have 4 houses, and that's how they came out. So these images would look like this once they're stenciled. Once they're die cut and embossed. Okay, so what I will do now, I will talk you through just briefly how the sleigh is stenciled as well, because again it's slightly different colorways to how it's been done before, and I think you may find it useful. We will still be using the same colors as before. And this comes together just as quick. Stencil number 1 is the body of the sleigh. So we will use the tree bark for this. Now there are 3 sections to the sleigh. So if you were using tree bark on all of them, it would work. And the way that I would suggest you make that work is by adding a different amount or a different intensity of ink to each of those sections. And each of those sections are on different stencils. So again, if you're not familiar with this sleigh, then that's a really nice way to get that done. So I'm going to go really dark on this bottom bit here. Not quite so dark here, because this is where the presents are. You could do that in a slightly different colour. And actually what I could do, thinking about it, I have the Loganberry, so I could just highlight this and just make it slightly pinkier over the brown by adding a little bit of pink like that. Okay, that will just make that stand out a little bit more. So we have stencil number 2. We want to go really dark on the base here, because this is the bottom of this sleigh. You could do this in yellow. It's entirely up to you. Or if you were using a completely different colour scheme to the houses, then obviously you can let your imagination go wild. But I shall blend this with all the browns, so it'll be nicer and traditional. And just imagine Father Christmas dressed up in his nice scarlet outfit. He'd look super traditional in this. And then we have stencil number 3, which is the third part of the sleigh. So we can just do a different intensity of the tree bark on there, and that will give us the nice point of difference. And I'm going to go slightly heavier at one end, slightly heavier at this end, just to add a little bit of shading and leave it lighter in the middle. Now we have the top of the presents there, so let's bring in a different colour. We'll go Loganberry, so make this really stand out. And because we're using such a range of colours here, there is always a way that you can make this stencil work, even if it's not necessarily colours that you would choose if you were stenciling the sleigh on its own. So we have the presents. Now, obviously, we want those to be really stand out. So I'm just using what I have left on my brush to go through there, and the candy cane. It can come together really quickly. Stencil number 5, we have the details on the presents, so we can go darker with our Loganberry, so that will add those details. I'm going to bring in here also some yellow. So we are going to have the garland on the back, so we should add yellow to that, and we have some yellow spots to this part of the stencil at the bottom as well. And we'll add a little bit into this section here. So you can see that's coming together. Now we have the, let me see, we have the bows on the presents here. I've used green on this one, but on this time round, I think I'll use yellow, so that will really stand out. Like that. I'm going to use the tree bark on the bottom of the sleigh again, because we'll just keep that very in keeping with everything else that we've stenciled. Now, it might be nice if you've done this like in a metallic colour, or you could perhaps just add glitter to it afterwards as well. That would look really cute, I think. And a bit of a pine cone here, so add a little bit of brown just there and over the flower, just to bring out those details. So stencil number 7, we have some leaves coming in, so now we can really go bold with the woodland moss, like so. And that will really stand out because we haven't used too much green at all so far. And I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow just to these areas here. You could use red as well, but we've got a lot of red going on, so I stick with the yellow. I'm going to come in again. I've used pink on the other ones, but I'm going to use the green this time, and just a little bit lighter. It will pick up some of the pink ink that's already on the stencil, but I don't mind that because that will just change the colour just slightly. And then this last stencil to add the detail to the pine cone and the foliage. And obviously we're going to come in with the green again. Go really dark so that really stands out against the ink that is already been stenciled. Don't forget our little details of the bows on top of the presents there. They work in green as well. And you can see just how lovely that stencil comes out like that. With those traditional colours, and it blends really nicely with the houses, which I think it just works, doesn't it? Works really well. So that's our stenciling done. Hopefully that's helpful to you. And with, I'd say, I listed the colours there for you, and I will put the colours in the caption underneath the video a little bit later on for you as well. So we can bring in our card blank. our glue will have dried, so we now have a really solid hinges going on here. Let me just close these up because, again, I am so clumsy. We don't want ink going everywhere. Now, to add the houses to those hinges, you'll notice in what I have here, I've actually grouped the houses together. Now, to do this, take your foam pads, which I know that you all have, because Lisa sells them by the thousands on the huge rolls. I'm just going to take individual squares here, and as I go, I'm using my big scissors, perhaps use my smaller ones. It looks less drastic, doesn't it? There we are. And I'm just going to cut them in half. And I'm going to lay these small sections along the side of the house here. Now, you can do both houses exactly the same, or you can do them differently. I've done them differently just to add some interest. So I'm going to add the foam pads along the front of the house along one side, and then the second house, turn it over, and I'm going to do it on the opposite edge. So when I add or attach the smaller house, it will be on the reverse, and I'll show you that in a second. So just cut those as I go along, lay them along the edge. Obviously, we need to take off our backends. Like so. Now, it's up to you whether you do this or whether you just leave the house to be free itself, but I think it's quite nice if you can layer them together. Now, I'm just going to layer the smaller house in front and make sure that I cover the foam pads. So we have a detailed image like that. And then this one, I should do exactly the same. Obviously, turn over the smaller house and just layer the house behind just so that it covers the foam pads. So when I turn that over, we have two different versions of the houses there. Now, what you can do is either with red liner tape, which sort of really adheres fast and quick, or you can use your glue, which I will do in a second. We can now attach these to the hinges in the card. So we can just add our glue. Now, I would like to point out that if you were good and sensible, not like me, if you actually placed the lid of the glue on top of the nozzle after each time you use it, the nozzle wouldn't clog. And I know that because I do it occasionally. Not often enough. I'm lazy and forgetful. So now what we can do, if you can, it will be worth sort of placing these together onto the front. So I'm hopefully, let me see if I can do this. Let's tilt that up a little bit so you can perhaps just see a little bit better. Just place the houses in front, and if you do them both together, then you get a good perspective that where they are sitting in line with each other. So you can see that sitting there. Now you can just hold that just briefly so that the glue takes. Now you can see the benefit actually if you created a square piece of a layer to go on the back here, either with stenciled houses or with silhouettes of the houses, that would give another impression of it being another row of houses in the background, wouldn't it? So while that sits there, that glue takes off. Just check that the house sits just above. You don't want it flush against the cardstock at the bottom. And then just gently, it will take, just close the house down or close the card down, and have confidence in the mechanism that you've put there already. And that will just help the card fall into place, and it help all the glue take. So when we open that card up, we have our houses that also stand up, which I think is really lovely. And it actually looks so pretty against the gold background there, doesn't it? You see the difference. Now, you could just leave it like that and put a sentiment there. I think that in itself looks amazing. But we do want to really put the sleigh in if we can, now that we've taken the time to stencil it. So as I said, we do need a second little hinge, which will just help with the easel mechanism of the sleigh. Now, I didn't give you the dimensions for this, so if you've got pen and paper to hand, I shall tell you now. This I've cut from glitter cardstock just so as it blends, because this is going to be a little bit more visible than the hinges behind the houses. So this will measure 2.5 inches by 1 inch. And you want to score at 1 inch and 2 inches. So let me just check the way that I've done this. And the way that you want to fold this is in just a tiny little tent fold like that. So we have this little section here, which will go down flat onto the base of the card. This section here will then sit behind the sleigh. So I'm going to add glue to the front section and attach the sleigh behind. And you want this to be sitting down at the base of the sleigh, as close as you can, just like that. Okay, can you see? Yeah. And just wait for that to dry. Now, what we want to do, we want to add glue to our little tab, but we want to add the glue on the underneath. Then when we line this up on the card, we want to make sure that when the card is closed and the sleigh is laying down, that it sits within the card blank. So we want to have all the mechanism flat initially, and we position the sleigh as if it's laying down, like so. That way we know that when we close the card up, everything's contained within the 6x6 and it will fit nicely in the envelope. So we can have that sitting like that, and we just press the relevant pieces down so we know that the glue takes. Okay. If you've already scored and folded your little easel section here, then that mechanism will easily come back into place and allow you to stand your sleigh up like that, you see. Now, it seems, and I've done this a couple of times now, that you don't necessarily need a stopper for the sleigh, because it does seem to stand up by itself. But we do need a sentiment on the card, and I think it's just a really nice opportunity to create that strip. So we can either just create a strip of cardstock, decorative paper, or it's an ideal opportunity again to put your sentiment on there. So I've just cut a strip of the glitter card so it blends into the back. I've cut the sentiment from the gold glitter card, which corresponds to the gold that I've put on the back of the card. And we want to make this 3D, obviously, so we use our foam pads just to raise that up. Let me just grab a few more. So we can put our foam pads on there. Take those backings off. So when we place this, we just want to move our sleigh out of the way so we know that that's going to be positioned right. Position that down. And that gives the ideal opportunity for that sleigh just to catch behind there, so there's no mistaking that it will stand up. So there we are. We have our dimensional 3D pop-up card, which is a really simple card. They say sometimes pop-up cards can sound quite daunting, but it's a really easy way to put this together. And just look at the dimension that we have sitting on there. It looks lovely actually with the colours coming together. I was a little bit unsure as to what colour I was going to put in the background, but I think that gold really works. So I haven't had a chance to check on your comments, actually. I've been too busy. I do get quite involved in what I'm doing. But hopefully you've been able to follow that. Again, you can always catch up on the videos. The videos now stay on YouTube, so you will find them under the live section on Lisa's channel, in the same area as where Lisa will do her live. So these are always there, ready for you to catch up on and just sort of re-look back on and craft along with as well. If you get the chance to actually give this a go, we'd love to see this in the group. I'm sure once your imagination gets going, there'll be some amazing sort of creations. But I know Dawn gives you lots of ideas as well. So there's probably a lot of catching up to do. But I've really enjoyed making that for you today, actually. And it has turned out in exactly the way I had it in my head, thankfully. Thanks so much for joining me all this week. I've been with you twice this week. So it'll be Dawn's turn to do Monday and Thursday next week. Lisa will be with you tomorrow evening, Friday again. It comes around so quick, doesn't it, this time of year? So enjoy that. I'm not quite sure what she's got planned for us, but it was something worth watching for sure. And I hope you all stay warm and stay safe in the snow. Enjoy the snow, and I'll catch up with you all again next week. Take care, everyone.